Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Taking a look at the Week 4 slate, and we got a pretty intriguing matchup as the Oklahoma Sooners head on the road to play a Cincinnati Bearcat team that kind of difficult to get the vibe on what this team is. Again, come in at like kind of the lower Big 12 teams in the conference, but go on the road and beat Pitt. That was an impressive win. And then you turn around and lose to Miami of Ohio, kind of an inconsistent team, but a team that can hurt you in certain ways if you're kind of not on your P's and Q's. Excited to get into some of these matchups now. Before we do, just want to say thank you to you guys. The support you guys have shown for all these game breakdowns truly does mean a lot. So if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. But more importantly, and again, the best part about doing this is learning from you guys in the comment section, talking ball with you guys. So drop your game predictions, your key matchups in this game. Appreciate you guys rocking with the boys. And without further ado, let's get into this. And I mean, Oklahoma fans that have been listening to me for a little bit, we got to start on this Oklahoma offensive side of the ball because it almost seemed like they were listening to what we were saying in the comment sections. We did a little OU offensive breakdown last week, asked them to push the ball down the field a little bit more, asked them to take some more shots. And you certainly saw that against Tulsa. And I'll say this, like, when you see this Oklahoma offense clicking, running with that pace, kind of hitting those chunk plays, hitting those explosive plays, it's one of the most dangerous offenses in the country. And you saw that on full display against Tulsa, where it was snowball downhill on Tulsa. And it was not really much they could do. They were just kind of outgunned. And that kind of speaks to this OU offense that when they're on their P's and Q's, if you will, it is a offense that is virtually impossible to stop. And the biggest thing that my takeaway was, Dillon Gabriel averaged 15 yards per completion. The ball barely touched the ground, and they were pushing the ball down the field. And a big narrative that we were talking about all offseason, kind of into the early parts of the season, are what are the wide receivers going to step up for Oklahoma, or which wide receivers are going to be stepping up for Oklahoma? We got our answer. It's a bunch of guys, right? Jaleel Farouk continues to be a dude. Andrew Anthony, absolutely awesome. Nick Anderson, Gibson, those guys are stepping up as well. So many ways this Oklahoma team can hurt you, whether they're pushing the ball down the field, whether it's yards after the catch. This team is so dangerous through the air. And we haven't even talked about their rushing attack. That is one of the best in the country. This offensive line, you lose, and we said this last week, like you lose Anton Harrison, you lose Wanya Morris, two guys who are in the NFL now. Anton Harrison was a first-round NFL draft pick. This Oklahoma offensive line has not skipped a beat. I think the strength of this group is on the inside, and you're seeing that running game really take off. And this time, Javante Barnes kind of gets the hot hand, gets a lot of the work, and really happy for him. You saw after that SMU game, he was asked actually, like, hey, how do you feel about your lack of usage? And he said, as a true sophomore, I might add, kind of a young kid, said, hey, Marcus Major, Tawi Walker, they're running the football really well. I'm just going to be waiting for my opportunity. When I get my opportunity, I'm going to take advantage of it. Really love to see Javante Barnes kind of getting that work. And you take a look at this overall Oklahoma offense. They can run the ball at such a high level. The passing game kind of exploded on the scene against Tulsa. When that Oklahoma offense is running like that, it is really hard to stop. Now, I think arguably this is the best defense that Oklahoma will see throughout the first 4 games against Cincinnati. I mean, this is a Cincinnati team that you take a look at their secondary, they're averaging a 45% completion percentage given up to opposing quarterbacks. Now, that number might be a little artificially low because Phil Yurkovich came in there and went 10 of 32 for less than a 30% completion percentage. That being said, the Cincinnati defense, especially in the back end, like there's still some elements of that Luke Fickell development that are still on that team. You guys got like Justin Harris in the back end who are really, really good cornerbacks. Excited to see this Oklahoma offense go up against the Cincinnati secondary that I think is pretty damn good. And then you take a look at what they are in the front seven. They have one of the best interior defensive linemen in the whole country, and Dante Corleone. He's going to be a guy that's a day 2 draft pick. Really excited to see kind of that battle that you see between that interior offensive line that I'm so high on for Oklahoma versus a really stout Cincinnati defense that is only giving up 3.7 yards per carry. Going to get a good feel for Oklahoma and how they match up against defenses that can kind of hang with them from an athletic standpoint. Now, flipping the side, as Cincinnati's offense, it can hurt you in some ways, right? Emory Jones, if you guys remember his time at Florida, really dynamic quarterback, probably not the most accurate quarterback in terms of staying in the pocket and throwing the ball. That being said, a guy that can make plays out of the pocket, a phenomenal athlete. Kind of interested to see how Oklahoma deals with that, right? In terms of you have a defensive line that is creating so much havoc, so much pressure, so many tackles for loss and sacks. How do you you want those guys to keep going and kind of get after the quarterback, but you also want to kind of keep Emory Jones in the pocket. Interested to see what Brent Venables and that defensive staff kind of scheme up for Emory Jones. That you might see some spies, Danny Stutzman, Jaron Kanik, and we got to talk about those guys. We talked about it last week. We talked about it this week again. Name me 3 better linebacker duos than what you're seeing out of Dan. Name me a better linebacker in the country right now than Danny Stutzman. He is playing at such a high level, sideline to sideline, getting behind the line of scrimmage, trading tackles for lost turnovers. He's playing out of his mind. And he's going to have a lot of responsibility dealing with a guy like Emory Jones. And another element of this Cincinnati offense that kind of dangerous is Corey Kiner. He's averaging over 6 yards per carry. They can run the football pretty effectively. I am very excited to see this Oklahoma front seven go up against a dynamic quarterback and a really good rushing attack. And then you look in the back end, Xavier Henderson has 20 catches for 300 yards for Cincinnati. He's another guy, former Florida dude, really, really talented, top 100 prospect coming out of high school, going up against an Oklahoma secondary that I think on aggregate has been really, really good, right? Gentry Williams is kind of emerging as one of those dudes that Oklahoma and Brent Venables really trust on the outside. My big thing for this in the back end, got to limit the blown coverages. Oklahoma's defense is swarming to the football, creating so much havoc, 2.7 turnovers per game. That's exactly what we thought this Brent Venables defense would look like. Now, my kind of, not gripe, but thing that we got to clean up on defense is the blown coverages, right? You had a couple against Tulsa. One was Makari Vickers, a true freshman, kind of understandable. Reggie Pearson got beaten man coverage for a touchdown. Outside of those 2 plays, maybe another play that you kind of saw, maybe a blown coverage where just way too much space, way too easy of a deep completion. So Oklahoma secondary has been really, really solid, and kind of excited to see them go up against some dangerous wide receivers like guys in Xavier Henderson. And if Oklahoma turns that or cleans that up, because when you get into Big 12 play and we start playing some of these better teams, that margin of error in terms of those blown coverages gets a little bit smaller. So cleaning that up is probably what you want to see from Oklahoma on the defensive side of the ball. But again, this Oklahoma defense, when I think of Brent Venables' defense, that's what I see. Like, creating havoc, getting behind the line of scrimmage, forcing turnovers. That's what you're starting to see. And that's, if you're an Oklahoma fan, you got to be just pumped up about kind of the mentality, the new identity on this Oklahoma defense that just was not there with Alex Grinch and Lincoln Riley before Brent Venables came to town. Now, I got my notepad here, and I'm kind of a little scatterbrained here, but I do want to shout out one more guy, PJ Adebawore, a guy we talked about a lot in the offseason as potentially a dude that just needs a little bit more time in terms of 5-star guy coming out, playing on the line of scrimmage, got a couple games under his belt. He's going to put it together. You might have seen a little bit of that against Tulsa, was playing with the ones at some points during that game. He's a guy that, man, if he clicks and you just add him to the depth of that edge pass rush unit, and this is one of the best pass rushing defensive lines that you see in the country. PJ Adebawore, had to shout him out. Getting to the pick here. Oklahoma heading on the road, 13.5-point favorites. In my mind, you got to take Oklahoma here. If you see this offense continue to play like they are, they put up 28 points and a half. They can do that routinely. I mean, they can go down, score touchdowns in less than 2 minutes. If that offense continues to click, continues to build that chemistry, this Oklahoma team is going to score points. And then looking at Cincinnati kind of dropping that game against Miami of Ohio, I could see turnovers coming into play. Emory Jones has not been a guy historically that takes care of the ball at a high level. I could see Oklahoma getting their hands on a lot of footballs. I also just kind of struggle to see Cincinnati, like, what are they going to do to give Oklahoma problems on the offensive side of the ball? It would have to be from some of those blown coverages, Emory Jones kind of making some stuff happen, which he certainly can do. But if Oklahoma is ready for that, plays discipline, keeps Emory Jones in the pocket, kind of limits some of those explosive plays, it's really hard from a consistency standpoint to see Cincinnati march down the field on Oklahoma on a consistent basis. Again, Oklahoma's been really, really good against a run as well, and that's kind of where Cincinnati wants to go. Feed Corey Kiner, who's an awesome back, but it's, for me, hard to see Cincinnati getting a lot of things going against this Oklahoma defense that I think is just playing at such a high level. So if they limit those explosive plays, limit those blown assignments, this is an Oklahoma team that's an absolute wagon coming into a Cincinnati team that's got a lot of new faces through the transfer portal, still trying to find that identity on the offensive side of the ball. Give me the Sooners. I will say this. We'll probably have to do a full recap on this Oklahoma offense at some point this week because what we saw, I want to talk a little bit more about. Appreciate you guys rocking with the boys. If you do enjoy the content, again, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.